Okay, so let's talk about something that sounds, well, pretty much impossible. Imagine the world's closest military allies, the members of NATO, actually facing off against each other. It's a wild scenario that could pit the United States against the very alliance it built. So yeah, let's dive into this frozen standoff.
So the big question is, right, how on earth could we get to a point where allies are staring each other down in the freezing cold of the Arctic? We're going to break down the tricky geopolitics behind this potential clash, and it's a story that's all about treasure, treaties, and a really high-stakes test of loyalty.
So on one side, you've got the United States, the traditional leader of the whole NATO pact, and on the other, you have its closest European partners. The very idea of them being on opposite sides seems to fly in the face of decades of history, but the cracks are definitely starting to show, all over a giant ice-covered island.
And the crazy part is, this whole conflict isn't about some big clash of ideologies or anything like that. Nope. It's all about what's buried deep, deep down underneath all that ice in Greenland. A treasure trove that could seriously reshape who holds power in the world.
Which brings us right to the heart of it all, the incredible, completely untapped wealth of Greenland. For centuries, people just saw it as this remote, empty wasteland. But that idea is changing, and it's changing fast.
So, what kind of fortune are we really talking about here? Well, we're looking at huge oil reserves, massive gold deposits, but the real prize, the one thing that's really driving this entire geopolitical game, is the huge stash of rare earth minerals.
All right, so what even are rare earth minerals? Well, think of them as the essential vitamins for all of our modern technology. They are literally in everything. They're in your phone, they're in electric car batteries, and here's the kicker. They are absolutely crucial for advanced military hardware like fighter jets and missile systems.
And that right there, that's the whole game. See, right now, the United States is heavily dependent on China for its supply of these minerals. Getting access to Greenland's deposits would be a total game changer, breaking a critical supply chain dependency on its main rival.
But here's the catch, and believe me, it is a huge catch. Greenland isn't just some unclaimed piece of ice up for grabs. It's got a really complex political status and a very powerful protector in Europe.
So let's do a super quick history lesson. It was famously called Greenland by Eric the Red. Kind of ironic, right? Just to try to attract settlers. Fast forward to 1963, Denmark officially claims it. And while it got self-rule with its own parliament back in '79, today it's still an autonomous territory of Denmark. And that is the absolute key to this whole thing. Any move the U.S. makes to control Greenland's resources would be seen as a move against Denmark's sovereignty. And Denmark, well, they're not just some random country. They're a founding member of NATO.
And that sets the stage for what could be the alliance's biggest test ever. A true paradox, where NATO's own rules could be turned against its most powerful member. Okay, so you got to understand NATO's core principle, Article 5. It is the bedrock of the entire alliance. It's super simple, but incredibly powerful. An attack on one is an attack on all. It's that whole all for one for all promise that's kept the peace for over 70 years.
So just follow the logic here for a second. It's wild. If the U.S. makes some kind of aggressive move on Greenland, it's seen as an act against Denmark. Then Denmark could invoke Article 5. And that's when things get truly unthinkable. All other NATO members would be legally obligated to come and defend Denmark, even if it means defending them from the United States.
And get this isn't just some far-off theory. We're told that European NATO allies, we're talking Germany, the UK, Finland, and Poland, have already sent forces to Greenland. And you want to know the most telling detail? U.S. forces are conspicuously absent. They are not part of this deployment. This really just captures the cold, hard logic of the treaty. The obligation is crystal clear. In a conflict between two members, the alliance is sworn to defend the one being attacked. It doesn't matter who the aggressor is. The rules don't have a special exception just for America. So you see the problem, right? You've got this immense treasure on one side and these ironclad treaty obligations on the other. This whole standoff could potentially push the world's most successful military alliance right to its breaking point.
There's a powerful metaphor being used to describe this potential shift in U.S. policy. It's like the hungry wolf that once hunted with the pack in places like Iraq and Afghanistan is now seen as turning on the pack to satisfy its own hunger for resources.
So for the United States, this is a massive, high-stakes gamble. I mean, the pros are huge. Resource independence from China, control of strategic Arctic sea routes. But the cons? Man, the cons are catastrophic. You could fracture NATO, lose strategic bases across Europe, and fundamentally weaken your position against Russia and China. And for the European allies, the dilemma is frankly existential. If they fail to defend Denmark, the whole principle of collective defense just collapses. They'd be sending a message that the alliance is hollow, potentially leaving each nation to fend for itself against bigger powers.
And we're not just talking about a handful of countries here. The NATO alliance is made up of over 30 member states. The sheer scale of this potential fracture is what makes this situation so incredibly dangerous for global stability.
Which leaves us with this final, really unsettling question. In the 21st century, is the hunt for critical resources now a force so powerful that it can break the bonds of history, loyalty, and the most formidable military alliance the world has ever known? That is the real question at the heart of this frozen standoff over Greenland.